Oh, good neighbors, how you doing? First off, I want to hear where you're from because I am from a couple of places. Um, Born in California, Deidre, I'm so glad you can make it, sweetheart. Born in California, then raised in Texas, and spent a lot of years in Oklahoma. So where I'm from, I really truly understand Tornado Alley. I'm sure you've heard of it around this time of year. Texas, for sure, Deidre. Around this time of year, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, all up through there, it just gets a lot of national attention because the meteorologists have the information to tell you whether or not a tornado is coming to your vicinity and whether or not you may be able to go to bed that night, or if you're going to have to be up watching these, clouds and the thunder and the lightning and the hail and everything. It gets quite freaking exciting in Oklahoma and Texas. And can I just say I'm a little crazy because I enjoy a good thunderstorm. I really, truly do. I enjoy a good thunderstorm. I don't know if it's something about that thunderstorm, that lightning, those clouds, that intense beauty that's just overwhelming. It kind of makes me feel like I'm put in my place. It kind of gives me perspective. And I'm sorry that. Anyway, so please tell me where you're from if you're just joining in, and what is maybe an emergency situation. What's an emergency situation that you've been in? As I said, living in Texas and Oklahoma for many, many years, the whole tornado thing, it is for real. I mean, I remember going to my grandmother's house in summer, and it was always kind of exciting in a way because where they lived, they were up in like the panhandle of Oklahoma. And every time I went, whether it was for a few days or a week, it seemed like we always ended up having a storm, and not just a thunderstorm, but the kind of storm that we would wind up in their storm shelter, their cellar. Some people call it the hidey hole. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but when you live in Tornado Alley, generally your home will have a hidey hole. It will have a storm cellar, a shelter, or at least a basement you can go to be safe when the storms come. Now, here in California, it's a little different. When we moved here, so many people were saying, oh, please do not go to California. Do not move there because there's earthquakes. Those crazy people out there have earthquakes. That whole West Coast is just going to fall off into the ocean. Don't move there. And so we did. We moved when we felt like we were supposed to, brought our whole family out here, the dog, the U-Haul. And within the first, it was years before we even felt a tremor of an earthquake in California. In the meantime, back where we had come from, they had some very unusual earthquakes, things like that. And they still had to fight the tornadoes every year. Now, there's challenges wherever you live. I think Norway's gorgeous. I really do. But I'm sure even living in Norway, you would have to fight the cold. You would have to fight, that time of year where there's like 3 hours of sunlight per day. There's going to be challenges no matter where you live, whether it's in Oklahoma and Texas with tornadoes, or whether it's in California where people are always going, earthquakes are going to happen. Just basically, if you're alive, there are always threats of problems, of emergencies. In California, something we have faced quite often is the fires. It gets windy, it gets hot, it gets dry. It's like all of Southern California can become like a big tinderbox, and then there's a car fire, or there's somebody has anything, you name it, anything that can spark a fire has happened. And we have been known to be in the place where we could look out just about any direction from our house and see smoke going up. And in fact, just recently, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I was out on our balcony and there was a fire like across the valley. And I was seeing it come over the hill and come down. And yes, it was several miles away, but it's unnerving. And man, you talk about some prayer that happens when you're seeing fire inching towards someone's house. I mean, I was just standing out there, rebuking, naming, claiming, praising, praying, oh dear God. I mean, it was everything involved, man. I was just praying in tongues and kicking butt, taking names, all of that. But you will do what needs to be done when you're in an emergency situation. There was even one time, this was at a house where we lived several years ago, and we were out after church one day, just enjoying some Jamba Juice with the kids. And a neighbor calls us and says, I don't want to alarm you, but there is a fire around your neighborhood. How do you not alarm somebody by saying those words? That's my question. So we, threw the kids in the car, raced home. And I was telling the kids, behind our house, there's a hill. I'm sure if there's any fire, it's going up that hill. So our house will be fine. Just kind of trying to logic them out of freaking out, even though I was wanting to freak out. We drive up to our neighborhood. And no, that wasn't the case. The neighborhood it was a short, kind of a cul-de-sac, and the fire was coming up a hill and surrounding the neighborhood. Yeah, it looked like something out of that movie 2012 or Firestorm or, whatever crazy movie you've seen where there's ash raining out of the sky. And you're like, is this a scene from Pompeii? It was just such a disaster area. And our house was in there. We had to ask special permission to drive up to our house real quick. My son had, snakes and terrariums. We had our dog, our cat. We had to get everything of worth, meaning lives, out of the house as fast as we could. I mean, we had literally 5 minutes. And that was crazy. Later that afternoon, my husband and I are at this neighbor's house and we're looking down because their house was kind of up on a hill, probably within a mile of ours, but they could look down on the scene and we could see all of the fireworkers and everybody was spraying their water and they were digging and they were doing whatever they could to protect the homes, thank God. But I just leaned against my husband and it was like, everything we have that counts is here with us. We have our kids, we have our lives, we have our animals. Honestly, the rest of it can go. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever faced that? I know a lot of times with people, sometimes it takes a cancer scare or some type of car accident or something like that. I mean, horrible things can happen. And then you're left to go, wow, I need to take stock of my life. What's truly important, what is not. That's why there's a whole chapter in Great Love for Life where I'm talking about foundations. It is assured that in our lives, those times will come. Those stresses, those strains will happen. And I'm just going to read real quick a couple things that I wrote that I felt were very important from Great Love for Life. So join with me if you have the book with you. If not, you can grab it on Amazon, iBooks, Apple Books. Anyway, from the chapter about foundations, it says, when seeking God's best, lay a solid foundation by seeking Him. If He's placed first as the chief architect of your life, the good and perfect gifts that come your way can remain good and perfect, even growing in value because they will thrive when left in His care. So if we read the stories about how Jesus loved people, we can look for Jesus' sense of humor. We can be aware of God's grace toward those who had screwed up. Remind yourself of Jesus' gracious acceptance of outcasts and misfits. I don't know about you guys, but I fit that description so clearly. Don't allow yourself to be crammed into some religious box. Don't assume that your life must fit some kind of cookie cutter mold. God revels in creativity and wants to hone your particular uniqueness. Bottom line, for you to have a strong foundation so that no matter what comes, earthquakes, tornadoes, broken relationships, death, fear, sickness, any of that. If you get to know God for yourself, if he is your rock, a foundation that will never be shaken, then you're going to stand. It's so cool to realize I have a loving husband and I never want to be without him. My children, I never want to be without them. I mean, we are given such beautiful, wonderful gifts. So I never want to be without my family. But thank God they are not what I stand on. They don't have to carry me on their shoulders, although we all support each other in a healthy way. They cannot be there all the time. When I wake in the night and I'm concerned, I'm worried, I'm thinking about tragedies, the things that can happen in this world, they're not the ones I turn to. Although, fine, I can, but the one I need, the one who's always there, the one who can let things come up in me that need to be dealt with, that need to be cleansed and healed, who can actually do something with that and not just go, dang, sucks for you. God didn't say that. He says, okay, let's go together. Let's deal with this. You're in the fire. This junk is coming to the surface. Let's deal with this together. He is the one freaking foundation that will not shake, will not crumble, will not let you down, even though the storms of life can be so crazy, so unexpected, can hit you and knock you down. Sometimes I've told my husband, I feel like when we've gone to the seashore, if you've ever gone to the ocean and maybe you're swimming in a place that's really strong undertow and really strong waves and the tide's coming in, and you may not expect how hard those waves can hit. You may not expect how freezing cold that water can be, and it can drag you under. It can hit you so hard and it can drag you under, and you can just be toppling head over heels. You may not even know which way is up. Sometimes life feels exactly that way. And I am vouching for that. There have been times many times, but even in the last year and a half, even just lately, where I feel like there's just one wave after another crushing me. Quick story, when the kids were little, we would love to go to theme parks sometimes. And one time when I think our second son was just about 4 or 5 years old, we went to SeaWorld. And there was the show of Shamu. And there was this one, I remember he had this curved dorsal fin on top. He was the older one. And he was the reason they had something called the splash zone. And we had put on, those ponchos. We had decided to brave it, and we were going to sit in the splash zone. Well, when it happened, it was not what we expected. My husband described it later. It was like bathtub full of ice cold water, just splashing you in the face. No matter what you had on, you were going to get soaked to the skin. And I remember our younger son was just so angry. It had been a long, hard day. And he was like, just mad. We bought him a towel. We tried to dry him up, but he was just done. And I've had days where something has just smacked me in the face like that bathtub full of ice cold water. And I think, I'm just done. I'm done. I'm done. It's over. But what is so cool is that with God, it's never just over. He's there for you. He stands when you crumble. He carries you when you fall. He lifts you up when you don't have the strength to get up on your own. He will hold you in his arms. He will hide your face in his chest, and he will breathe life back into you in a way that no one and nothing else can. So I speak that right now over you, over me. I speak grace. I speak healing for whatever situation's going on, whatever disasters are coming your way, whatever grief has been hitting you like those bathtubs full of ice water. I just speak strength of God himself. I speak the power of his Holy Spirit to be in you, to be activated in you, and to just empower you in every single way that you can have that unexpected life and light and resurrection power. And you can share that even in the midst of the fire and the tornadoes and the destruction and the grief. You can be God's hands and feet and eyes and arms of love, and you can speak His power even when your flesh is tired, when you don't understand. You have a solid foundation, and you know He'll never let you go. Bless you. Thank you for your time.